The strange discovery. It was a quiet night in a small countryside town on Earth. The sky was clear and the stars shone brighter than usual. Most people were asleep, but one man was awake. His name was Daniel, a simple Earthling who lived alone near the forest. He often walked outside at night because he loved to watch the stars. But this night something different happened. Something that would change his life forever. Daniel noticed a sudden flash of light racing across the sky. At first, he thought it was just a shooting star, but the light grew bigger, brighter, and then louder. The ground shook as if thunder had struck nearby. Daniel's heart raced. This was no star. This was something else. The light crashed deep into the forest, leaving behind smoke and fire. Without thinking, Daniel ran toward it. He had no idea what he would find. His mind was full of questions. Was it a plane? A satellite? Or something from beyond Earth? Every step he took filled him with both fear and curiosity. When he reached the crash site, Daniel froze. In front of him was no plane, no machine he could recognize. It was a strange pod, glowing faintly with marks and symbols carved across its surface. The metal looked alive, as if it was breathing. The door of the pod was half open and a faint sound came from inside. A weak cry. Daniel's chest tightened. Someone was inside. He carefully pushed the door open. What he saw shocked him. It was a little girl. She looked almost human, but not completely. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the moonlight. Her eyes were large, shining like silver, and her hair had a faint blue shimmer. She wore a torn outfit made of strange material, nothing like Earth clothes. She was small, weak, and trembling. The girl looked at Daniel with fear, clutching her arms tightly around her chest. She whispered something in a language he did not understand. Her voice was soft but broken with pain. Daniel knelt down slowly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay. You're safe now," he said gently. Of course, he knew she could not understand him. But his calm voice seemed to ease her fear just a little. The girl tried to stand, but her legs shook, and she collapsed forward. Daniel caught her in his arms. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten in days. He felt her heartbeat. It was fast but fragile. Daniel looked back at the pod. Smoke rose from its cracks and strange sparks flashed. He realized the pod would not last long. If others saw this, there would be chaos. Governments, soldiers, scientists, everyone would fight to claim this child. She would not be safe. He looked at the girl again. Her silver eyes stared back at him, filled with fear but also a desperate need for help. Daniel made a decision. He could not leave her here. Carrying her in his arms, he hurried back through the forest toward his home. Every sound made him nervous. What if someone else had seen the crash? What if something or someone was chasing her? But the forest was silent, almost too silent, as if it was holding its breath. Finally, he reached his small wooden house. Inside, he gently placed the girl on his old couch. She looked around with confusion, her eyes studying the strange earth objects around her. The ticking clock, the flickering lamp, the shelves of books, all were alien to her. Daniel brought her water. At first she hesitated, but then she sipped it slowly. Her hands shook as she held the glass. After drinking, she seemed a little stronger. She tried to speak again, but the words were strange sounds Daniel could not understand. Still he nodded and smiled, hoping she would see kindness in his eyes. The girl's body was weak and soon her eyes began to close. She fell asleep on the couch, breathing softly, like a child finally safe after a storm. Daniel sat nearby watching her. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? Was she the only one? He knew this was dangerous. Keeping her could mean trouble. But something inside his heart told him he had done the right thing. He remembered the way she looked at him, desperate and lost. She was just a child, alone on a strange world. He could not abandon her. That night, Daniel made a silent promise. He would protect her no matter what. He would keep her safe from anyone who tried to take her away. Outside, the forest grew quiet again as if nothing had happened. The stars sparkled peacefully above. But far away in the endless dark of space, someone, or something, was surely searching for the missing child. And Daniel had no idea that the little girl he carried into his home was not just any alien. She was far more important than he could ever imagine. A new home on Earth. The morning sun rose slowly, painting the sky with soft orange light. Daniel had not slept much that night. He sat in his small kitchen, sipping cold coffee. his mind still caught between disbelief and fear. On the couch in his living room, the strange girl still slept peacefully. Her breathing was steady now, but her silver eyes, her glowing skin, and the crash he had witnessed were all too real. This was not a dream. When the girl finally woke, she looked around the room with wide eyes. She seemed both curious and cautious, as though she had entered another world. For Daniel, she had. He smiled gently, trying to make her feel safe. "Good morning," he said softly, even though he knew she could not understand. He pointed to himself and said, "Daniel." Then he pointed at her, waiting. The girl tilted her head, confused at first. Then in a soft, musical voice, she whispered a single word. "Lyra." Daniel repeated it carefully. "Lyra," the girl nodded. A faint smile touched her lips, the first since he had found her. From that moment, Daniel knew her name. Lyra. Over the next few days, Lyra stayed in Daniel's small house. She was weak at first, but slowly she grew stronger. Daniel gave her food, though she only ate small portions, tasting carefully as if the flavors were new to her. She seemed fascinated by simple things, the way water ran from the tap, the flicker of the television screen, even the ticking clock on the wall. At night, however, it was different. Sometimes Daniel heard her whisper in her sleep, speaking in that strange language. Sometimes her body glowed faintly as if energy pulsed beneath her skin. Once he even heard a soft hum filling the room like distant music, though no instrument was playing. Daniel wondered if it came from her. He tried not to be afraid. She was only a child, and she looked at him with trust in her shining eyes. But he knew she was not just another lost soul. She was something else. One evening, Daniel took her outside into the garden behind his house. The sky was clear again, full of stars. Lyra stared at them for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she raised her hand toward the sky as if reaching for something far away. Daniel watched quietly. He could see the sadness in her face. It was the look of someone who had lost everything. "Home?" Daniel asked softly, pointing at the stars. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She nodded once, then lowered her hand. At that moment, Daniel understood more than words could tell him. Lyra was not just lost, she was far from where she belonged. And yet she had no way to return. Days turned into weeks. Lyra began learning simple Earth words. Daniel taught her by pointing to objects and repeating their names. "Book, chair, tree." She learned quickly, her mind sharp and eager. Soon she could say short sentences. "Water, please," or "Thank you, Daniel." But she also surprised him. Sometimes she would point to things and give them names in her own language, words soft and lyrical. Daniel tried to repeat them, making her laugh. For the first time, her laughter filled the small house, bright and pure. Slowly, the house began to feel alive again. Daniel had lived alone for years with only silence as company. Now Lyra's presence brought warmth he had forgotten. She helped him with small chores, always curious about how Earth things worked. Once, she even tried to sweep the floor, though she ended up chasing dust like it was an enemy. Daniel laughed, and she laughed with him. But beneath these small moments of peace, there was always a shadow. Daniel could not forget the crash. Somewhere out there, someone must be looking for her. He worried about what might happen if the wrong people found out. One night, he heard her crying softly. When he went to check, she was sitting by the window staring at the sky. He sat beside her. "Lyra," he whispered. "It's okay. You're safe here." She looked at him, her silver eyes shining with tears. Then in her broken Earth words, she said something that froze him. "No safe. They come." Daniel's heart pounded. Who was coming? For her, for Earth? He wanted to ask, but she shook her head as if words were not enough to explain. She placed her small hand on his arm instead. Her touch was warm, almost glowing. She whispered, "Father." Daniel felt something stirred deep inside him. Father? That was what she saw him as. Not just a protector, not just a stranger who had saved her. To her, he was family. At that moment, Daniel knew his promise had grown stronger. No matter who came, no matter what danger followed, he would protect her. Weeks later, Lyra went with him to the small-town market. She wore a hooded jacket to hide her glowing features. To the townspeople, she looked like a shy orphan, perhaps adopted from another country. No one suspected the truth, but Daniel noticed something strange. When Lyra walked among people, they seemed drawn to her. Even without speaking, her presence made others smile. A crying child calmed when she passed by. An old woman suddenly laughed after meeting her eyes. It was as if Lyra carried a quiet magic with her, something that touched hearts without being seen. Daniel realized then, Lyra was not only special because she was alien. She carried something deeper, something powerful. And though he did not yet know it, the world would soon discover who she truly was. The truth begins to show. Months had passed since the night Daniel found Lyra in the forest. By now she looked stronger, healthier, and more confident. She could speak more Earth words, enough to share small thoughts with Daniel. She still called him father, and he still smiled every time she did. But things were changing. Strange signs began to appear, signs Daniel could not ignore. One evening Daniel was fixing the roof of his old shed. He slipped on a loose tile and lost his balance. Before he could fall, a burst of light wrapped around him like invisible hands. He landed softly on the ground unharmed. He looked up in shock. Lyra stood nearby, her eyes glowing bright silver, her hands stretched forward. The glow faded quickly and she looked frightened. "Lyra, what was that?" Daniel whispered. She shook her head, breathing hard. "I don't know, just happened." Daniel stared at her, his heart racing. He had always known she was different, but seeing her powers with his own eyes made it real in a new way. She wasn't just a lost child from space. She carried something far greater inside her. The nights grew restless after that. Lyra's dreams became louder, filled with strange words Daniel couldn't understand. Sometimes she cried out as if she was being chased. Once, Daniel woke to find her glowing so brightly that the entire room was lit like day. He asked her gently about the dreams, but she only shook her head. "Bad bar, people, gone." Her broken words were enough. Daniel realized she was remembering things, pieces of her past. Then came the day when the world outside their small town began to notice. News spread on television about strange lights in the sky. Farmers in nearby towns reported seeing objects hovering above their fields, vanishing in seconds. Some said they saw shadows moving at night. Others claimed to hear humming sounds like machines. Daniel felt cold each time he heard such reports. He knew it wasn't a coincidence. Whoever had sent Lyra in that pod, they were still searching. Lyra too seemed to feel it. She would stand by the window for long hours, staring at the stars with a worried face. Once, she told him softly, "They close." One afternoon, Daniel took Lyra for a walk in the forest. He thought the fresh air would help clear both their minds. But deep inside he wanted answers. "Lyra," he said, stopping near the river, "I need to know. Who are you? Where do you come from?" Lyra looked at him, silent. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she knelt by the water, dipping her fingers into the stream. Ripples glowed where she touched, like liquid light spreading outward. Finally she spoke. No, poor girl, not orphan." She searched for words carefully. From Far Star. Big place. Many people, Princess." Daniel's breath caught. He thought he had misheard. "Princess?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, princess, my people. Fight. Enemies come. Palace burn. I run. They send me away." Her voice shook. Alone." The truth struck Daniel like a storm. He had taken her into his home, thinking she was just a lost alien child. But she was far more: royalty, the daughter of rulers, maybe even the heir to an empire. He realized now why the soldiers in her dreams chased her, why ships hovered near Earth. They weren't just looking for a missing child. They were searching for their princess. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat at the table, staring at the old lamp flickering. His mind was heavy with questions. What would happen if the world found out who Lyra truly was? Would Earth become the battlefield of her people's war? Could he even protect her from something so big? But when he looked at Lyra, curled up on the couch like any normal girl, his heart softened. No matter what her past was, she was still the same child who laughed at his silly words and called him father. He had promised to protect her, and that promise would not break. The very next week, the first true sign came. Daniel and Lyra were in town, buying groceries. Suddenly the sky darkened, though no clouds were above. A low hum filled the air, deep and heavy. People stopped walking, looking up in confusion. There, above the town, a shadow passed. Huge, silent, and unmistakably not from Earth. Panic spread. Some thought it was a new kind of aircraft. Others shouted about UFOs. But Daniel knew. He grabbed Lyra's hand and hurried her away. Lyra's silver eyes widened, her body trembling. "They find me," she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand tightly. "Then we stay together," he said firmly. As they ran through the crowded streets, Daniel realized his quiet life had ended. The secret he had kept was no longer safe. The world would soon know that the girl in his care was not only alien, she was the missing princess of the stars. That night, as sirens echoed in the distance and news reporters spoke of the unidentified craft, Daniel sat beside Lyra. She looked at him with fear, but also trust, "Father," she said softly. "I stay with you." Daniel put his arm around her, holding her close. The storm was coming, he knew it, but he would face it with her. Outside, the sky glowed faintly with strange lights. The hunters were near. The truth was out. The reveal: the nights in Daniel's town were no longer peaceful. Strange lights flickered in the sky almost every evening. Some vanished quickly like fireflies in the dark. Others hovered for minutes, humming faintly before disappearing. People whispered about aliens, governments, and secret experiments. For Daniel, these signs were not rumors. He knew exactly what they meant. They were searching, and soon they would find her. One evening, as Daniel and Lyra returned from the town market, the ground shook. A deep roar echoed above them. Daniel looked up and his heart sank. Breaking through the clouds was a massive ship, dark, metallic, and shaped like a blade cutting through the sky. Its lights glowed red, scanning the land below. People screamed and scattered, cars swerved, and chaos filled the streets. Daniel pulled Lyra into an alley. Her silver eyes widened with fear. "Here," she whispered. The ship slowed and hovered directly over the town. Then with a thunderous boom, beams of light shot downward. 3 tall figures stepped out of the glow. They were not human. Their skin shimmered like polished steel, and their armor reflected the red light of the ship. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their voices, when they spoke, echoed unnaturally. "Princess Lyra," one of them called, his voice carrying through the town like a storm. "We have come for you." Daniel froze. People around them looked confused, whispering, "Princess, who are they talking about?" But Lyra knew. Her small hand shook as she clutched Daniel's sleeve. "They call me," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Daniel felt the truth hit him like a hammer. It was no longer just her secret. The world now knew. The soldiers spread out, scanning the streets. One raised a device that projected strange symbols into the air. The symbols shifted, forming an image of Lyra's face. Gasps filled the crowd. People turned, searching for the girl. Daniel pulled Lyra deeper into the shadows. "We have to go," he whispered urgently. But Lyra shook her head. "No, if run, they hurt people." Her eyes shone with resolve, though her body trembled. Before Daniel could stop her, she stepped out from the alley. The light from the ship reflected off her pale skin. Gasps rose again from the humans watching. One of the soldiers lowered his head respectfully. "Your Highness," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Your people have searched across the stars. Your throne awaits. Come with us." Daniel rushed to her side, standing protectively in front of her. "She's not going anywhere," he said firmly. The soldiers tilted their heads, studying him as if he were an insect. "Earthling," one said coldly. "You cannot protect her. She belongs to us." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she stood tall. "I not belong," she said slowly, forcing the words out in broken Earth language. "I choose my father. Here." She placed her hand on Daniel's arm. The crowd murmured, confused but moved by her words. Some even cheered faintly, sensing courage in the small girl. The soldier's glowing eyes flickered. "You dishonor your bloodline," one growled. "You are heir to the throne. Your people need you." Lyra lifted her chin. Her small body shook, but her voice was steady. "My people need heart, not crown." The lead soldier stepped closer. His armor gleamed, his shadow towering over Daniel and Lyra. "Enough," he said. "You will come with us, or we will take you by force." Before Daniel could react, Lyra raised her hand. A sudden wave of light burst outward, blinding the soldiers. The air vibrated with energy, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. People screamed and ducked for cover. When the light faded, Lyra stood in front of Daniel, her silver eyes glowing like fire. For the first time, she looked like royalty, not because of wealth or a crown, but because of the strength radiating from her. The soldiers stepped back, shaken. "She has awakened," one whispered. Daniel grabbed her hand. Lyra, we have to go, now. Together, they ran through the chaos. The soldiers followed, their heavy steps echoing behind them. The ship's red beam swept the streets, searching. Lyra's powers flared again. She raised walls of shimmering light to block the soldiers, slowing them down. But each time she used her strength, her body weakened. Daniel could see her struggling. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest, the same place where Daniel had first found her. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Daniel knelt beside her, holding her shoulders. You don't have to fight them, he said desperately. We'll find another way. Lyra looked at him with tired eyes. Father, they never stop. I must show who I am. From the shadows, the soldiers approached once more. The lead one raised his weapon, pointing it at Daniel. Step aside, Earthling, he commanded. Daniel spread his arms wide, shielding Lyra with his own body. If you want her, you'll have to go through me, the soldier sneered, preparing to strike. But before he could, Lyra rose to her feet. Light surged from her body, brighter than before, forcing the soldiers to stumble back. Her voice rang out clear and strong, no longer broken. I am Lyra, daughter of the Star Throne. I am not weak, and I do not stand alone. The forest glowed around her as if the very earth answered her call. The soldiers froze, uncertain. Even the great ship above seemed to hesitate. Daniel looked at her in awe. For the first time he understood she was not just a lost girl. She was a leader, a princess, and maybe something even greater. But with that power came danger. The reveal was complete. The world now knew who she truly was, and nothing would ever be the same again. The forest was silent after Lyra's burst of light. Smoke drifted in the air, and the tall armored soldiers stood frozen, their glowing eyes fixed on her. For a long moment, no one moved. Even the great ship hovering above seemed to wait, its engines humming low like a beast holding its breath. Daniel stood beside Lyra, his heart pounding. He had just seen her powers in full strength for the first time. She was glowing, her small frame blazing with the energy of the stars. She did not look like a frightened child anymore. She looked like something far greater. The lead soldier stepped forward at last, his metallic voice deep and commanding. Your Highness, he said, bowing slightly. Your power proves what you are. You must return with us. Your throne awaits. Lyra's glow dimmed slowly, but her silver eyes stayed sharp. She looked at the soldier, then at Daniel, and finally back to the ship above. Her lips trembled as she spoke. My throne? She whispered. No, I will not go. The soldier shifted uneasily. You must not refuse, the leader growled. Your bloodline gives you duty. You are the last heir. Without you, your people fall into chaos. Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. My people already burn, she said softly. I saw it. I remember. You were there. You left me, alone. Her voice shook with both pain and anger. The leader's eyes flickered. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Daniel stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't owe them anything, Lyra, he said firmly. You're safe here, with me. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes softening. She nodded once, then turned back to the soldiers. I have family now. My father is here. My home is here. I choose Earth. The soldier's armor hissed as if alive. One slammed his staff into the ground, the earth cracking beneath it. You dishonor your title, he thundered. You would abandon your throne for this human? Lyra lifted her chin, her small body trembling but her voice clear. Not abandon, protect. A throne means nothing if no heart behind it. The crowd of humans who had followed at a distance gasped at her words. Some whispered to each other, realizing they were witnessing something beyond belief. The leader's voice turned sharp. Do you think you can defy your destiny, princess? Without your power, your people will perish. Without your crown, the empire falls. Lyra's eyes burned brighter. Then let it fall. I will not be a ruler of fear. I will not leave the one who saved me. She pointed at Daniel, her small hand steady. He gave me love when all else was gone. He is my father. Daniel felt his chest tighten. She had chosen him. Over a throne, over an empire, over everything. The soldiers looked at each other, their metallic bodies shifting uneasily. The leader snarled, If you refuse to come willingly, then we will take you by force. The ground trembled as more beams of light shot down from the ship. More soldiers appeared, their armor glowing with red energy. The humans nearby screamed and ran. Sirens wailed in the distance as Earth's military vehicles approached the area. The forest became a battlefield waiting to explode. Daniel gripped Lyra's hand. "We have to move," he whispered, but Lyra shook her head. "No more running." Her voice was calm but filled with strength. "If I run, they hurt others. If I hide, they never stop. I must stand." The soldiers advanced. One raised his weapon, pointing it directly at Daniel. Lyra stepped in front of him. "You will not touch him," she shouted. A wave of silver light burst outward, knocking the soldiers back. They stumbled but did not fall. Her body trembled from the effort, yet her eyes glowed fiercer than ever. The leader growled. "You are strong, Princess, but you are only a child. Without us you are nothing." Lyra glared at him. "Without love you are nothing." The words echoed like thunder through the trees. Even the humans hiding nearby felt the power in them. For the first time the soldiers hesitated. Daniel realized something. This wasn't just about soldiers or battles. This was about loyalty, about who Lyra truly was. She wasn't choosing between Earth and her empire. She was choosing between a life of control and a life of freedom, between fear and love, and she had already made her choice. The sound of engines grew louder as Earth's military vehicles arrived. Soldiers in human uniforms stepped out, aiming their weapons at the alien intruders. Helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights cutting through the forest. The alien leader raised his arm, ready to attack the humans. But before he could, Lyra raised her voice strong and clear. "Stop," she commanded. Her body glowed once more, brighter than before. Her voice rang like a bell across the chaos. Both alien and human soldiers froze, stunned by the force of her presence. "I am Lyra, daughter of the Star Throne," she declared, "but I am also daughter of Earth. I will not choose one world over the other. I will protect both. And I will protect my father." Her light spread across the battlefield, washing over humans and aliens alike. For a moment the forest fell silent. Daniel looked at her in awe. She had grown from a frightened child into something far greater. Not just a princess of the stars, she was a leader forged by love and loyalty. The soldiers stepped back, uncertain. The humans lowered their weapons, unsure what they had just witnessed. Lyra stood tall, breathing hard but unshaken. The choice was made. She would not leave Earth. She would not leave Daniel. But Daniel knew the fight was far from over. Her refusal had only set the stage for something much bigger. And the true test of her loyalty and her power was still to come. The test of loyalty. The forest had become a place of fire and shadow. Human soldiers lined the ground with tanks and rifles, their headlights cutting through the smoke. Above, the alien warship hovered like a black sun, red beams shining down. And in the center of it all stood Lyra, small, trembling, but glowing with a light stronger than both armies combined. She had made her choice. She would not leave Earth, she would not abandon Daniel, but choices came with consequences. The alien leader raised his staff once more, his voice echoing like metal against stone. "Princess Lyra," he called, "you bring shame upon your throne. If you will not return as our ruler, then you will face judgment as a traitor." Lyra's silver eyes blazed. "I am no traitor," she said. Her words were broken but steady. "I protect. That is true ruler's heart." The soldiers behind the leader stirred. Some bowed their heads in silence as if ashamed. Others gripped their weapons tighter, ready to fight. Daniel noticed the division. Not all of them agreed with their leader. Suddenly, a second group of aliens appeared, descending from another smaller ship. Unlike the armored soldiers, these ones wore lighter robes marked with golden lines. Their eyes glowed not red but blue. The crowd gasped. Even the alien soldiers stiffened at the sight of them. One of the newcomers stepped forward and bowed deeply before Lyra. "Princess," he said, his voice calm and respectful, "we have searched long for you. Some of us still believe in you. The throne may be gone, but the people remain. They need you." Lyra's eyes widened. She looked from the robed figure to the armored leader, her small body caught between two sides of her own people. Daniel clenched his fists. This was more than a rescue. This was a war within her people, and Lyra stood at the center. The armored leader snarled at the robed aliens. "Do not listen to her. She is a child who has forgotten her place. She sides with Earthlings against her own blood." The robed figure shook his head. "No, she sides with love against fear. That is what makes her worthy." The two groups faced each other, weapons ready. The humans raised their rifles, unsure of who the enemy was anymore. Daniel stepped forward, pulling Lyra slightly behind him. You don't have to prove yourself to them, he whispered. You're already enough. But Lyra shook her head. No, father. If I hide, they keep fighting. If I stand, maybe they stop. Her silver eyes turned hard with resolve. I must show them who I am. The first strike came from above. The warship fired a beam of red energy at the ground, shaking the forest and sending humans scattering. Trees burned and the air smelled of ash. The battle had begun. Alien soldiers charged forward. Humans opened fire. Blinding light and gunfire filled the night. In the chaos, Lyra stepped into the open. She raised her hands and her body erupted in silver fire. A dome of light spread out from her, shielding soldiers, both human and alien, from the deadly blasts. The ground quaked under the force, but her shield held strong. The robed alien stared in awe. She has awakened, one whispered. She carries the old power. The armored leader growled. Power wasted on weakness. He raised his staff and unleashed a surge of energy toward her. The beam struck her shield, cracking it like glass. Lyra staggered, her knees buckling. Daniel rushed to her side, holding her up. Lyra, stop. You'll hurt yourself. She shook her head, her voice weak but determined. No, I must protect all. Then something unexpected happened. A group of armored soldiers once loyal to their leader lowered their weapons. They looked at Lyra, this small girl standing between worlds, and then dropped to one knee. She is our princess, one of them said. She has the courage we have lost. The leader roared with rage.
Fools, she chooses Earth over us.
She chooses weakness. Lyra's voice rose, strong and clear despite her exhaustion. Earth gave me family. Earth gave me love. That is not weakness. That is strength. Her words cut through the battlefield. Even the humans who moments before had been ready to fire lowered their weapons, watching her with awe. The leader, blinded by fury, charged forward, his staff glowing with deadly energy. Daniel moved to shield Lyra, but she pushed him gently aside. This is my fight, she whispered. The leader swung his staff, releasing a storm of fire and light. Lyra raised both hands. Her silver glow flared brighter than ever before, clashing with the red energy. For a moment, the battlefield vanished in blinding light. When it cleared, Lyra was still standing, her body trembling but unbroken. The leader lay on the ground, his armor cracked, his weapon shattered. Silence fell. The humans, the robed aliens, even the soldiers all watched her. Lyra spoke, her voice soft but carrying to every ear. I am Lyra. I am daughter of stars. But I am also daughter of Earth. I will protect both, no matter what comes. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. She was no longer the frightened child he had found in the forest. She was becoming the leader she was meant to be. Not because of her crown, but because of her heart. The robed aliens bowed deeply. The kneeling soldiers pressed their fists to the ground. Even the humans, though they didn't fully understand, felt the truth of her words. But Daniel knew this was not the end. Lyra had proven her loyalty, but the galaxy was wide and enemies greater than this leader would come. Still, as he looked at her glowing figure in the smoke-filled forest, he felt hope. She had passed the test. She was not only his daughter, she was a princess devoted to both her people and her new world. The devoted princess, smoke drifted through the forest, rising in thin trails toward the night sky. The battle was over. Human soldiers stood in silence, their weapons lowered. Alien warriors knelt on the ground, their glowing eyes dim with defeat or awe. The great ship above hovered quietly, its red lights fading as though unsure what to do next. And in the center of it all stood Lyra, small and trembling but radiant with silver light. Daniel rushed to her side, holding her as she swayed on her feet. Lyra, are you all right? He asked, his voice rough with worry. She leaned against him, exhausted but smiling faintly. Yes, father, she whispered. I stand. Still. The robed aliens stepped forward, bowing deeply before her. One of them spoke with quiet respect. Princess, you have proven your heart, not with armies, not with power, but with love. You are the ruler our people need. The armored soldiers who had once followed their leader looked down ashamed. Some removed their helmets and knelt before Lyra, acknowledging her as their true heir. But Lyra shook her head. Her silver eyes scanned both humans and aliens, the wounded and the afraid. I am not ruler because of crown, she said slowly, her voice still broken but clear. I am ruler because I protect. Love makes me strong. The forest grew silent again, her words echoing like a vow. The humans, unsure but moved, began to cheer softly. A sound of relief, of hope, Some shouted her name. Others simply raised their voices in gratitude. Daniel watched in awe as strangers, people who only hours ago would have feared her, now looked at Lyra as something greater than a princess. Not just an alien. Not just royalty. But a protector. Later that night, when the crowds had thinned and the soldiers returned to their bases, Daniel and Lyra sat together by the ruins of the crash site. The glowing pod that had once carried her to Earth lay broken and silent. It had begun her journey, but it no longer defined her. Daniel looked at her, the child who had changed his quiet life forever. "You could go with them now," he said gently. "You could rebuild your empire, take your place among the stars." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. The stars reflected in her silver eyes as she gazed upward. Then she shook her head. "I will not leave. My people need hope, yes, but I can give it. Here too, Earth needs me." "You need me." Daniel's throat tightened. "Lyra, you don't owe me anything. You're meant for something bigger than this small town, this small world." But Lyra smiled softly. "You gave me life when I had nothing. You are my father. My heart is here. If I am princess, then I am princess of both worlds." Far above, the alien warship finally began to rise. It did not fire. It did not attack. Instead, it drifted slowly into the stars, leaving Earth in peace. Some of the aliens who remained promised to carry Lyra's words back to the broken empire. They would spread her message that their princess lived, that she chose love over fear, and that she would one day guide them again. For now, Lyra stayed on Earth. In the weeks that followed, her story spread. Governments tried to explain the strange events, but no words could hide the truth. People across the world spoke of the Star Princess who had appeared in the forest, who had stopped a battle with nothing but her courage. Some feared her. Some worshipped her. But most remembered her as a symbol of hope. Daniel kept her hidden when needed, but he knew her secret could not stay silent forever. She belonged to two worlds now, and both would one day call on her. One evening, months later, Lyra and Daniel sat together on the porch of their small home. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in orange and violet. Fireflies glimmered in the grass. Lyra leaned against him, her voice quiet. "Father, and I'm afraid sometimes. Afraid they come again. Afraid I am not strong enough." Daniel put his arm around her shoulders. "Being afraid doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, or maybe it makes you more than human." She smiled at his words. For a moment she looked like the small girl he had first found in the smoking pod, but her silver eyes carried the weight of a galaxy now. As the first stars appeared, Lyra lifted her hand toward the sky. Her fingers glowed faintly, silver threads of light weaving between them. "Do you think," she asked softly, "that I can truly protect both, Earth and them?" Daniel looked at her with quiet pride. "You already have. You saved me. You saved this town. And one day you'll save them too. Not because you're a princess, but because you care." Lyra's glow brightened, then faded gently. She lowered her hand and leaned closer to him. "Then I will keep caring, always." The night grew still. Crickets sang. The stars stretched endlessly above, hiding secrets of wars and empires. But for Daniel, sitting beside the girl who was both alien princess and adopted daughter, the universe felt smaller, warmer, and full of hope. And for Lyra, the poor alien girl who had once been lost and alone, her journey was no longer about survival. It was about devotion. Devotion to her father, to Earth, and to the people who would one day need her strength. She was no longer just a runaway child. She was the devoted princess.